Morning, Trainiacs. Got my Humans of Triathlon podcast kit on. A, because looks really sharp. B, because I'm in the off season and I'm a little bit pudgy right now. I talked to the new coach, actually a new coaching team who's going to be helping out teamtrainiac.com, and I've got it figured out why even with the low carb approach that I took over the past year in 2019, I still gained weight. There's actually a very small section of the population that will gain weight on a low carb diet. I'm one of those people. And it's not entirely my fault because we figured out potentially the reason why people like me, probably people like a lot of you, might actually gain weight when you're still restricting calories. It's not necessarily your fault. Feel a lot better about myself. We're gonna get into that and how I'm gonna deal with it for 2020. After I Zwift. It's indoor riding season again. Much as I like Zwift, it's still not the same as being outside. All right, we are just finishing up 1 hour on Zwift. Really low intensity, under 30 kilometers total ride, power somewhere around 140-ish, heart rate around 112. Just wanted to be really low intensity because we had late Thanksgiving. Now that we've been to Kona, we call it Mahalo Giving. And I ate a lot of dessert. I ate a lot of carbs. So to reset that, a good way to kind of bounce back if you are doing a low carb approach is to have a very low intensity fasted ride the next morning. You don't want to do fasted and high intensity. You want to do fasted and super low intensity, and that will help combat a little bit of the pumpkin pie that I had yesterday. And having to get NTK to crowbar me into this thing. It does look good though. I make a garbage bag look good, let's be honest. All right, so when it comes to me getting larger over 2019, what happened is last year, 2018, I ended up getting down to, at some points, 149 pounds, and I was still performing fairly well. Without really looking at my calories or anything like that, I hovered around 152 to 154 most days. This year, when I switched to the low carb, high fat approach, I ended up going up to, at some points, I think by the end of the season, I was racing at around 163 pounds, which, I mean, it's still a healthy weight, but it's even more than before I had lost the weight in 2018. So I've been trying to figure out why this is, and I haven't really come to a good solution. But I had a call with one of the members of the coaching team who's going to be working with me in 2020 and working with the athletes on teamtrainiac.com as kind of like training consultants. And a couple of really interesting things came up. Number one, if you've been big before, like me as a 215 pound person, it's easier to get big after, because what happens is first, your fat cells expand and then they multiply. So me, compared to somebody who's never been big, I am going to have more fat cells and it's going to be easier for me to get big right now, as we saw. The second thing, and the more interesting thing, is this. There's two ways that people can end up being satisfied by their food. It's called satiety, satiation, basically the feeling of being full and not having to eat anymore. Now we'll put like one right here. One is calories, the other is volume. I am the volume. So picture this as my stomach. Somebody who's satisfied by calories can eat a low carb, high fat diet, and that high fat ends up taking up just a little bit of space in the stomach and their body signals are saying, you know what, I have all the calories that I need. It doesn't matter that I'm not full like this and bursting at the seams. I have enough calories to survive. But somebody who needs volume, somebody like me, I need to feel that feeling of being full. And that is a real problem when you go to a low carb, high fat diet, and it's probably one of the big contributing factors as to why I put on weight. Now, I'll go inside and I'll explain exactly why that is and how we're gonna deal with it. And I'll get out of this brand spanking new, however yet sweaty kit. Okay, so always, Pete, always. Also, how long has it been since all of you have seen Pete? It's been a long time. Right, Pete? He's a nice guy. Okay, so if you are somebody like me who needs to feel full by actually being full of food, you might have a hard time if you are like me and you hear, all right, well, I'm gonna go low carb, high fat, so I'm gonna cut out all the carbs, all my snacks, all my meals are gonna be primarily fat-based. That ends up becoming fairly tough because of the different amounts of calories that come from fat, protein, and carbs. Now, we'll do some of these pop-ups again here, or maybe down here. So protein has 4 calories per gram. Carbs have 4 calories per gram. Fat has 9 calories per gram. So just on even the same amount of food with fat, you're going to end up getting more than double the amount of calories. So what I've laid out down here is 4 examples of different types of food that you can get and how much it's going to fill you up. Here, I'll show you. I'm gonna use this coffee mug as just a size guide for you. So put that coffee mug next to 100 calories of sunflower seed butter. Like, it is not very much. That, if you're eating that as a snack, it's not going to nearly fill up your stomach. We'll move on, and this here is pork loin roast, so much more protein based. It does have a little bit of fat. I've covered up the excess of what wouldn't be 100 calories, but this here, compare that to the coffee mug, and we're talking about like a half a coffee mug size-wise for 100 calories, so a little bit more filling. Go to another just straight carb, an apple. We're talking about, you know, a little bit more because there's a little bit more fiber, a little bit more water, a little bit more air in the apple. But here's the thing that completely gets ignored when you start going low carb, high fat. Most people forget entirely about vegetables. This entire bag here that you could fit like 5 of these coffee cups in, this entire bag of spinach isn't even 100 calories. This all together would be about 70 calories. So what people end up doing is they load up on this, they forget about this completely because low carb totally makes sense. But if you ate this entire bag, you would end up getting, multiply this by 3 because there's 3 servings in this bag, 9 grams of protein and only 12 grams of carbs, and you would be plenty full. So what I ended up doing when I started going low carb, high fat was all of a sudden I'm trying to fill my stomach up with nothing but these little teaspoons. And because I'm one of those people that's wired to feel full and satiated and not feel those hunger cues by having a full stomach, I'm all of a sudden going to end up binging on this, or I'm going to constantly feel hungry. So if that's what you're going through, if you go low carb, high fat, or if you're just dieting and eating less and thinking, well, you know what, I am always hungry, you need to also add in, I'm not going to say you need to eat less of this or of protein. As a matter of fact, low carb, high fat is fairly high protein, fairly high fat, but you also need to substitute in those very low calorie, low carb salads, vegetables, low glycemic index fruits, berries, things like that take up a ton of space in your stomach, but don't end up having huge amounts of calories or huge amounts of carbs. This stuff is pretty delicious. Like, I have sat on the couch and eaten a big chunk of a jar of peanut butter. So I am still working with Steph Lowe, the natural nutritionist, on my fat loss program. What I think I can get down to next year as we try to qualify for Kona is somewhere around 150 pounds, maybe even a little bit less, and still have really good performance because I'm going to be doing it the right way, not depriving myself. It's by adding in lots of good fats, making sure my protein levels are high, making sure I'm getting enough carbs to fuel myself, somewhere around the 130 grams of carbs every single day, but making sure that I'm always feeling full and not overeating when I binge or when I feel hungry, and frankly just not feeling hungry, by adding in a bunch of those salads and vegetables and all those good things that we are told that we need to eat. So you might have missed this before, but if you go to triathlontaren.com/Steph, STEPH, you can get the high performance fat loss program that I'm going through with Steph Lowe, the natural nutritionist. And what I'll do is there will be an email in a bunch of those emails that come out that guide you through what I'm going through with Steph, that are kind of like the good foods that I'm trying to focus on to fill me up. Things like cucumbers and fibrous foods and salads, and like I'll create a whole list, and then things that are a list of like eat sparingly, because it's not going to fill you up, but it's going to add a heck of a lot of calories and make it tough for you to shed weight, like me. So go check that out, triathlontaren.com/Steph, and I'll put a link in the description below for that snazzy Humans of Triathlon podcast kit. Go check it all out. And subscribe. Later, Trainiacs, do all those things. So many requests. So demanding.